what a fantastic pair, I tell you what. Millie, you know I'm going to make you talk right now. She's scared to death to talk, and I told you she did a fantastic job yesterday at Life West. I think all the students that are here will agree with me on that. Millie, you told a tremendous story yesterday. Chiropractors today worry about their bill getting cut by the HMOs or whatever insurance they can't get on. You told some stories yesterday about the time when you moved to Florida with the baseball players and some of the things the tragedies that happened with that. And if you could relate some of those stories and some of the players, I think everyone would be interested in that.
Well, Chappie and I guess some of you may know Chappie, I don't know. He was our son, and, I'm getting off of it. I'm talking about baseball players now, right? My other son, we'd go to baseball games every night, minor leagues. And one ball player was from Dominican Republic, and he was talking to me, and he said he couldn't play baseball anymore, that the doctors examined him and said this was it. So the game was called, and Doc came back, and I asked Walter how he was going to get home. And he said he was going to walk, and Storm and Terrell, and I said, no, we'll take you. He said, well, no, you get in trouble. You get in trouble, because prejudice was terrible there. They couldn't walk on the same stride of the street that you did. Well, anyway, Doc says, come in and see me. I think I can fix you up. And lo and behold, he came in the next morning, and Doc adjusted him. He went back, played ball, and played ever since. But we became acquainted with many, many ball players, and whenever he would tell everybody to come in town to go see Doc, and I would meet them at the airport, and I would be arrested many a time having dark-skinned boys in my car. And it went on, the big leagues come in, and our first friend was Chico Ruiz. He played with San Diego Padres. I don't know if any of you remember him. He was killed. He had an accident in San Diego, and we were godparents to his children. And then from there it grew. Tony Pérez, and well, the latest now is Danny Tarbell, and I think maybe many of you here know Danny. We gave a baptismal party on Danny. His parents asked if we knew of a church that would baptize him. I went to 6 Catholic churches, and when I'd say, Father, it was the babies of color, they'd say no. So I did find one church that the priest said that he would baptize them. So we gave a great big baptismal party, and we had over 50 ball players and their families there. And cars just kept circling around. 2 weeks later, we get a phone call calling us nigger lovers and threatening to tar and feather our child. Sending Doc on calls, and he would get on calls, and there'd be nobody there. We had bomb threats to our cars, and Doc always took care of the ball players and never charged them. And finally, one day I was on the phone with Mrs. Rios, Chico's wife, and we were going to have another baptismal party for their child, which we were godparents to. And they told her to hang up, and she hung up, and they said, Mrs. Reaver, and I said, yes. And they said, you're wanted in the hospital immediately. Your husband was beaten and left for dead. So I went to the hospital, and he was sitting on the table, and blood all over him, his raincoat, and he was covered with blood. And they says, we don't know what we're going to do with him. He will not accept a tetanus shot. And I says, well, let me take him home. And he couldn't at that time remember just what had happened. So he woke up about 5 o'clock in the morning, and he said, I think I know who did it. There were 2 nice, handsome men coming in, and they'd come in as the last patients. And only one would take an adjustment. And they came in for, what, about a week or 2? I guess casing the place. Was it about a week or 2? So he started home, and he came out the back door. And the one of them pushed him in, held his hands behind him while the other one beat him over the head with a 2x4. and he was supposed to be dead. They thought they killed him. And the detective lived across the street, and he said he'd try to find out what it was all about. And it so happened that the John Birch Society and the Ku Klux Klan had hired these two men from Canada to beat him and to kill him. And prejudice was terrible. I used to drive the ball players around and was stopped all the time. And just awful. But we had wonderful friends of ball players. Tony Pérez, I could go on and name one after the other, and we're still very good friends. And all their kids now are ball players. And we're hoping that Danny does come. He's the one that we had the first baptismal party on, but the one he took the beating over. So that's my baseball story. My son Chappie was a writer. His first book was called Moot, and he won a Edgar Allan Poe Award. Then his second book was A Little Bit Dead, and he won the Golden Spur Award. His third book he wrote and mailed on a Sunday, and he died on a Monday. And Ron and I Ron and my son were good friends. And Ron and I was talking today about Chappie, and it never hit me before that he died on his adjusting table. He worked hard the day before, laying carpet and so on, and he said, I'm going to the dumpster and put this carpet in before it gets too wet and be heavy, and I'll go back to the office and stretch out, take a little rest for office hours. So his receptionist came in and says, come on, chap, it's time to get up now. Patients are starting to come in. He was dead. He died right on that table. And I never thought anything of that until we talked today, Ron, about him dying on his adjusting table, just laid there to rest. And he just died. Beautiful, beautiful boy. And a good, straight chiropractor.